Hey Angie,
Hey, Taki. How's it
how's it
going?
going? Oh,
I said it first.
okay. Um, it's going well. I don't know if I told you about my calf.
Yeah, you
Um,
told me you had an injury or something.
yeah, so it's torn
Oh gosh.
officially. Um, Middle of my prep. So, so yeah, I can't train any legs or no lower body. Cannot do cardio. So I've been just doing upper body training for a whole week. So we'll see from Monday. Maybe I'll able to start back on like some bikes or elliptical, see how it feels. I've been walking pretty okay, and the swelling has gone down, but
Mhm.
finger crossed. So hopefully
Oh
I'll
gosh.
recover from this.
That's
What
like a
about you?
perpetual, that's like a perpetual Charlie horse in your leg, isn't it?
Yeah.
It kind of feels like that.
The first 2 days was the worst. Like it was just cramped the whole entire time.
Wow.
Anytime I took a step, it was like that. I was just like, oh my god. But yeah, it was just like a lot of back and forth with the different
Mhm.
doctors. I had to go to radiologist to see there was no blood clot, just
Oh
all
gosh.
kind of stuff. But thankfully everything's fine. So um, yeah, so I'm ready to get back to this, right? So
Right.
uh,
It's your season. I mean, you got to
yeah,
get ready. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
How was your week?
Whew, busy, busy. So I started a new role a couple of months ago, and they've never had this position before. So now that everyone knows that I'm there, everyone's knocking on my door, like, "Hey, can you do this? Hey, how do we do this?" And I love that because um, it's helpful and supportive, but it has been crazy. It was just a crazy week, and we have those, right? You get through it. Uh, kids are kids are home for summer, and I don't know if you experience this when your kids are home with you, but I don't know how they survive a typical school day without 360 snacks a day, because honestly, it's like I just bought food and like 3 days later it's gone. So, yeah, we're just doing that. And I look forward to this time. I really do. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's hard for me sometimes to put myself out there. We were just talking about that.
Mm.
But I find such growth in our time, and I just appreciate you letting me be part of it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I meant to ask you. So obviously, Father Day um, just passed, and um, I had, it's always a mixture type of feelings, right? I, certainly miss my dad. And then, my kids over here, I mean, they're still pretty young and they just want to celebrate, and
Right.
I mean, that part is good. Um, and it's definitely a bittersweet feeling every time I have to celebrate Father's Day. That's just always has been like that for some reason. I meant to ask, how did your kids take it this Father's Day?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. I just approached it. I left that door open for them and decided that we would do as much or as little as they wanted. We would talk about him as much or as little. I left that space open, and I fixed everything that he loved to eat that day. And
Mm,
and I told the kids that, and I told them funny stories about, when I'd make this, your dad would eat the whole thing. And it was good. It was light. It was not as heavy. And I think part of it was I wasn't dreading it. I think so much of what we experience is this anticipation of it. It's like we know it's going to be painful. We know it's not gonna be the same. But I just allowed it to be what it was and just held space for them, and it was good. It was good. We listened to songs he liked, we told a couple of funny stories, we ate the food that he liked, and, really just celebrated him from afar is what we
right,
did, and didn't focus on it, did not make that the central piece of it,
right,
and,
right.
it was good. It was good, and we talked about my dad and funny stories there, and, I just have to say we kept it light. and that felt good.
Yeah. Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I always enjoy my time with them, regardless of, my Father's Day makes it a little bit more. It's harder because then it just gives me the space to think about my own dad and what I mean to my kids. And um, you know, I think today, it'd be probably a good segue to talk about, just honoring our parents, ourselves, and our kids. Given, we already starting talking about this. Um, so I think I have shared some information to you prior, long time ago, right? About
Mhm.
my dad, the story of when he passed away. I wasn't there because he was traveling. I had to, um, I was able to attend the funeral, but it was just within like 48 hours. So like I flew from here. He passed away in Bangladesh. And it was probably one of the toughest moment of my life, as far when, my sister-in-law broke the news to me. I was in the office, and it's almost like I was in disbelief, like not like it wasn't hitting me at all. And the whole entire time, I think, um, from me, from traveling from DC to, going to Bangladesh, it, the whole entire time, I don't think I had any source of feelings of like I lost my dad, you know, until I saw his body, and then it was like hell broke loose, right? So it's, I often think about, especially on Father's Day, that's because that's the last real memory I have of him. Uh, either that or the last actual memory that I have is when he actually left from DC. We were at the airport, and he hugged me and he cried as like he was never gonna see me again. And that was like a moment of, um, when he left, I was coming out from the airport, and I just had this weird feeling. So I'm like, he doesn't do things like that, right? And so it's almost have sorts of, I don't want to use the word regret, but kind of like that I should have went with him. Maybe not that I could have stopped anything, but at least would have had more time. Um, so some of those things, I do go back and I think about what if type of situation. Um, but yeah, I mean, you that I would say probably the one of the toughest thing I have faced in my life, losing someone that I love the most. So
I remember you sharing it with me, and I th- I remember a story from that talkie. If you want to talk about it, but
sure.
it impacted our lives. You and your dad like are a part of our lives, and my kids have never even met you. I've never met your dad, but you told me the story that a tradition in your culture is honoring like your parents by doing or someone who's passed away by doing something for the community or doing something in their honor,
Mm,
in their name. And you told me about how you went back, and it took you a minute to get there. It wasn't like it just happened like right then. I remember you telling me, and I think your brother go with you, I think. Was
yeah,
it
yeah.
you? Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah. So me and my brother, we flew. Actually, we flew from New York. He was living in Boston at that time, and I was in DC area. So we met in New York, and we flew from New York. Him, his wife, and myself. So three of us flew. Yeah, and then he could not stay the whole entire time. I stayed longer for that event. I think you were talking about. So that happened after 40 days. After someone passed in our religions, like you do, as a prayer for the person, and you feed the poor people, and however way you can, um, do something for others, trying to remembering, my dad. So
I thought that I remember you sharing the pictures of the kids that you fed. And I
yeah,
remember you showing me a picture of the steps that you built to the river and
yeah,
the impact that I think that overall, as a society, and especially in Western culture, we are a death denying culture. We don't really want to talk about it. We're very quick to bury our dead, and then it's kind of like we move on, right? I mean, we only get 3 days of bereavement in most companies. We don't even build time in for
mm,
people to grieve. And when you shared that with me, it was close to the time of when a really close friend of mine's father, it had been a year since he'd passed. And and I knew it was going to be really hard for them. It was sudden, very much like it was with your dad. And I told my kids the story of what you did. And in fact, you had shared pictures with me. I wish I could find them. I showed my kids the pictures, and we all put together like these care bags because here in Denver, we have a high population of people who are unhoused, and many of them veterans, which really hits close to home for us. Um, and we went out and Papa Al is what they called my friend's dad. They went out in Papa Al's honor, and we actually put cards in the little bags we made in honor of Papa Al. And I don't know, it made such an impact on my kids to do that. And they're always going to do that. And when we're what the way that we've interpreted this for us, Taki, is um, we're going to do it on the anniversary of when that person passed. And so this year in September, it'll be the first anniversary of when their dad passed. And we're going to do it then. We're going to do something. We're going to do something that speaks to the person that he was. And we're going to honor them. We're going to honor him in that way. And that came from you sharing with me and honoring your father. And it's almost kind of like throwing a stone in a pond, these stories and these experiences, because it's this ripple effect. You and I were coworkers. We just got along really well. We got each other, and we talked a lot. And thank goodness, right? Because that was like the third level of hell working there, right?
yep,
I mean, let's be real. And so I love that we bonded like we did and that you shared that with me because I shared it with them and then we translated it in our own way. And now they will forever do these things. They will do these things to honor the people that meant something in their lives. And that came from you. And
I
what an
appreciate
absolute beautiful tradition. And they know it came from Taki, right? They know, but it's beautiful, and that's how I don't know. I know that had to be so incredibly hard.
Yeah, well, thank you. First of all, I appreciate you guys carrying you know this tradition. I guess learning from what I did for my dad. It is a religious. As you know, I'm Muslim. It is a religious obligation. I would want to say that you do that if you can afford to do that,
Hmm.
whatever way you can, right? For someone who passed away. For me, I'm not a super religious person. I do believe in all the basics and try to do, you know, good within my knowledge that everything I can do. But I don't always follow everything. So one other thing to me, it was very important that I could have gone and like given money to anyone, like, donated to mosque or whatever charity that could have. I just don't know whether that money actually being spent the way it needs to be.
Hmm.
Um, so it just made sense while I was there. As I ended up staying, more than a month. So I think it's the 40th day, or we end up doing it a little bit early. I forgot, but I just realized like I was gonna go visit. Um, this was my dad's grandmother's house.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I didn't really, when I was growing up, I never went there that many times because, because I was always used to going to my mom's side of the family's house, my other grandmother's house, but not from the dad side. So no one actually lives there, right? So since I was going there, thought maybe that's the best place to do it, honoring him. His mom was from there. My cousin who helped me to accommodate all this this whole event and helping me with everything. Like he knows that whole area, the village, and so he have told that I was doing that, so made sure like everyone knew that to come for lunch, and
Mhm.
it was such an experience just to feed some of these people who was like unfortunate. They don't have some of them don't even have the basic stuff in life, right? Whether they're gonna eat the next meal or not, they don't know. But just able to do that for those kind of people and just not just 10, not 20. I mean, I'm talking about hundreds.
Yeah.
Like I got nervous at a point. I'm like, man, are we gonna have enough food? Right? But it worked out. We end up having enough food to feed the whole village. Um, and that was such an incredible moment, like just to be able to do that. Um, I know I had like fever that the night before because it was cold. I was literally sitting outside with the butcher because the sacrifice, we sacrificed a cow, um, and they were just basically butchering the meat to make sure we have it ready for for the cooking. So I stayed out, got sick, had fever, but I was like, I'm gonna push through this. I don't care, right? Like tomorrow's the day, um, and I have done it, and I was fine in the morning. Just the willingness to do it, right? The intention. Um, it was a long day, but man, it was worth it. So that was something we have done, and then the second part to it was there was a mosque was nearby, and they have a pond literally in front of it. So in the village like that, the water is super essential, and it's not there all the time, right? So people used to just come to the pond to wash their hands and everything to before they go pray, and so decided to do creating steps for the people to go down so they're not like coming from random places when it's raining. There's it's gonna get muddy, so it just made sense to like create something that people will use it every single day, you know and will make their life easier, um and it's for a good cause, right? People comes there to pray, and I need to make sure that if I can help them to build something, honoring my dad is priceless, right? So it definitely a feeling. I don't think you can put a price on it. It's just very rewarding feeling to do something like that for to help hundreds of people, or even just for people who wants to go pray.
Oh,
So yeah,
that's amazing, Taki. I could only imagine how your dad would have viewed that if your dad were there seeing his son do that. Because you think about it with your son, right? And how like remarkable and it's like, they just did this in my honor. They just took care of so many people. And it just again, it's this impact, it's this ripple effect. And I think that it's just beautiful, and we've interpreted it in our way, and we'll continue to do that. And again, that's from you and your dad. So I thank you for that. It's the kids actually remember dates like, more than maybe I do, My dad passed on Mother's Day. It'll be 5 years, or I'm sorry, no, 10 years next year. And so the kids are aware on Mother's Day that, it's kind of a double edged, it's celebrating mom, but then it's also remembering dad. And so they always make space for that on Mother's Day. And it's good. It's good. You know, I was thinking we were talking about like what we wanted to chat about today was, honoring our parents, honoring ourselves, and honoring our kids, right? And I started thinking about past, present, future. That's really what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And, how we honor our kids and giving them the space to be who they are, to really live as they are.
Yeah.
I mean, I love your thoughts on that, but I'll give an example. So, my oldest son tried college for a couple of years, really wasn't his thing. And he's like, I just want to work. I just want to work for a while. And now he's worked in serving, like in serving jobs for years because his real passion is his music.
Mm.
And my expectation for him as a parent, because we do this, whether we think we do or not, we do this. We think, okay, well, if he loves music, maybe in my head, I was like, maybe he could be a music therapist, or maybe he could be a music teacher, or maybe he could, thinking of all the things that I could do or that he could do that would be like this steady job or this security and, a career. But that's not who he is. He's like, I don't want to base my identity on my job. I want to produce music and make people happy. And so he loves serving others. So he does that with his job and he makes amazing money at it. So he takes care of himself very well. And he goes out and he performs and he does open mics and he records and he's living his life. But if you would have rewound me to when he was maybe a junior or senior in high school, I had all of these thoughts and expectations and hopes and goals for him, but they were
Mm.
not his, they were mine.
Right. Where yours.
And so it's taken me having an adult child to understand how to honor him and allowing and again making that space for him to show up as he is and not put those expectations of what I think or the fears that I may have about who he's going to be or job security or are you going to be able to support yourself. I raised him well and he'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's something that has taken me a minute to understand is how we honor our kids. And like with my other two, it's just letting them be who they are and not trying to push them into any kind of box because I'm afraid of what the future may hold for them. I think there's a difference between, guidance
Yeah.
and just, helping them to steer and then steering it yourself. And that's hard. I don't know if you experience that with your kids, but I sometimes have a hard time letting go of that steering wheel and letting them steer, letting them sit in the driver's seat. It's very hard for me because I don't want, we always want our kids' lives to be better than ours, right? We wanted them to have it
Absolutely.
easier than us, but
Absolutely.
we also have to let them be who they are. So, like, how do you, as a single dad, like, do you see things and you're like, you know that okay, this might not end well, and I'm going to do everything I can to prevent you from getting hurt, but they have to experience it. So, tell me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think I got better with time, honestly. I think I used to have that view of like, I want to raise him this way, or I want to raise my
Mm.
daughters this way. I think as they're growing, I mean, they're fairly still young, right? So my son he's 11. Um, my girl, middle one is 8. She's turning 9 actually next week. Crazy. And then
Wow.
little one's gonna turn 6 in October. But as I see them, they're growing. They all have their own like, dislike, you know, what they want to do, that sort of thing. And I start to think about myself, right? How much of a choice I had when I was at their age, how much of a freedom I had. And it makes me sad because not a whole lot, right? And
Right.
so I don't want to be that. person that want to block, they're willing to either learn something on their own because that's what they like, or like I want to have, I want to give them their freedom
Yeah.
and want them to have that. And you know, I'll give you a good example of, so my son, he's black belt in Taekwondo. As soon he turned black belt, I was like, okay, I'm gonna take him off from Taekwondo and I will put him in Jiu-Jitsu. I want him to be, have mixed martial
Mhm.
arts skills. And I put him on in Jiu-Jitsu. He was enjoying it, but I think the coach was saying like, "Oh, you're gonna be ready. You're gonna be ready for this match that's coming up." I feel like he felt pressure that he
Mhm.
has to win because I'm there, right? And he's one of those kids that he wants to impress his dad, right? And
Right.
he's always looking for my validation, and I never want to make him feel that way, right? And I never done like, hey, he just wants to do that,
Mm.
and so sometimes I have to step off, so I don't want him to feel that, like, just be you, right? Regardless, he was going there. After a while, he was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm like, why? And he was like, no, I don't think I'm ready. I'm like, it's okay if you're not ready. It's okay to even lose. And so I wanted to show him and compare my, like the bodybuilding thing, right? That's my hobby. And when I started it, I didn't do that well, right? And yes, I'm getting better every year. Yes, I won last year. He saw it in his own eyes, right? So, but I didn't win in my first competition. So I was trying to tell him that you need to learn how to lose before you know how to win.
Mhm.
And it's
Right.
okay to lose because that's what's going to make you better. But I could not get through his head. And his mom was like, listen, he doesn't want to do it. Just drop it. So he dropped out. And instead, he started playing soccer. And he's really
Mhm.
good at it too.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, that's fine. Like, then play soccer, right? And he plays really, really well for his age. He's competing with bigger kids and still getting, you know, selected for all-star team, things like that. And I'm super proud of him for, just going through, pushing himself, just trying. And as much I want him to come back and still do jiu-jitsu along with soccer, but I'm like, sometimes it just has to come from within. It might be my want or my dream for him to do this, right? But maybe he just
Mhm.
wants to play soccer and I have to step back and let him be him. And
Yeah.
I think I need to do this more often. Like I think my girls are next to come, right? My middle one,
Mhm.
she doesn't like soccer as much, but she's in it. Um, but then I'm like, maybe she'll wants to do something else if she doesn't want to do soccer, right? But right now, like, that's the dilemma with the kids, just and I'm trying to be a better parent of um giving them the freedom,
Mhm.
to be what they want to be, especially when I see they're good at something. My two girls, they both are great, you know, doing art, drawing.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that's what you guys want to do, I would support them 100%. If they want to go sing, I'll put them to music school. But it's things, I'm trying to figure out as I go, what is it that they want. I think once they reach to the level where your son is, as far college and all this other stuff, it would be a whole different chapter for me as well because we'll have to see how I adjust. If someone doesn't
Right.
want to go to college, I think it's not that I'll be completely against it, but I have to ask. So what is the next
Mhm.
plan then? What else you
Right.
want to do? I'm willing to support any way that I can, right? But
Mhm.
I just need to maybe have some sort of logical
Yeah.
sense to like where you are going with this, right? And
Right.
I don't. I think. we definitely a generation gap. Like from my parents' perspective, if I said, well, I don't want to go to school, I mean, that would be devastated, um, and disappointed,
Oh,
but
same, same, same.
so so yeah, I think I'm learning as I'm going, but I think I'm doing better than before. I had something else in my mind, but now I think I've been doing better as far as I'm moving forward, learning how to get better with them